Okay, so now we're here and we're back, and this is important stuff right here. Important. These four angle types. Corresponding angles, alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles, and consecutive interior angles always exist when a transversal passes through two or more lines. All right, so let's look at right here. So in this figure right here, yes, it's true. 1 and 5, angle 1, angle 5 are corresponding angles. All right, they're still corresponding angles. However, it is only when the lines are parallel that they have the properties discovered above. So these are parallel lines. In this figure, 1 and 5 are congruent by the corresponding angles postulate, by CAP. All right? And corresponding angles is a postulate. We accept it as fact that corresponding angles are congruent. The other three are theorems, and we actually prove them to be true. And we'll do that later on in the unit. It's going to be a lot of fun. Do you see the difference? We're going to say, sir, yes, sir. All right, that's the difference. So these relationships exist no matter what, but the congruency or supplementariness only happens when the lines are parallel. All right. Which theorem or postulate stands out as different? Why does this theorem or postulate stand out? So again, this is iBook stuff, but I feel like talking about it today. It's just important. All right. So consecutive interior angles is the one that's different. Consecutive interior angles, this one is supplementary. All right, the rest, I'm going to abbreviate. Corresponding angles postulate, alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles. The punchline of all those are congruent. So you really only have two choices when you do these problems. Are they congruent or are they supplementary? And in fact, if you pick, excuse me, if you pick any two angles in these figures, like above, if I pick 7 and 4, let me not pick it on that picture. Over here, if I pick 7 and 4, they're either going to be congruent or supplementary. Or if I pick 8 and 2, they're either going to be congruent or supplementary. That's the pick. That's the only two options you had. And in fact, most of the time you can tell by just looking at the picture, or you can just use a little logic and reason. All right, so we got some basic problems to go through. So again, this is going to emphasize how things are either just going to be congruent or supplementary. So with respect to angle 47, let's just go in numerical order. So this is what I really like about geometry 2, is it just kind of becomes one big puzzle without a specific path you have to take. All right. In fact, I can figure out angle 1 or 2 immediately. Now this is kind of a basic problem, but nonetheless, that's 47 degrees. Why? Vertical angles. All right. Don't forget about vertical angles. Again, those are going to come up in this unit as well. Then from here, I can say, well, angle 2 is 47 degrees. Why? Corresponding angle postulate. Or I could have even got from 1 to 2 and said that, well, they're alternate exterior angles. So again, this is starting to become one giant puzzle, and this is what I really appreciate about geometry. It makes it fun, it makes it interesting, all that cool stuff. So again, right here, I can find angle 1 or angle 2 first. There's not a specific way I have to go. What I'm going to do is take 66 and say, well, angle 1 and angle 6. They're both on alternate sides of the transversal. They're on the inside, the interior of the parallel lines. So I know that's 66 degrees because they're alternate interior angles. All right. And then again, I got options. I can say, well, this right here, we have some consecutive interior angles. So that must be 114 degrees because they're on the same side inside of the picture. Or what I could have even done, which some of you probably thought, is that, well, we have a linear pair right here. A good old linear pair. Angle 1 and angle 2 form a linear pair. So that's another way I know that they're supplementary. All right, remember, either congruent or supplementary. That's the only options. Okay? So here's another picture. Again, this is kind of a major punchline of the unit, is solving for x. Okay? So again, these double arrows mean parallel. The lines are parallel. So now what we're going to do is, again, I like to kind of emphasize things, figure out really what I got. I got this angle, I got this angle. Now what's so great about this angle, they're on the same side, so on the consecutive side of the transversal. They're on the interior of the parallel line, so I'm going to use CIA, or consecutive interior angles. All right, so maybe it's a good idea to identify the angle relationship you have and then write out the punchline. Supplementary. Okay, so hopefully you can clearly see how this is really building upon stuff we've been doing prior in the school year, especially Unit 1. Because now I have two angles that are supplementary. We've done problems like this in the past. I'm just going to say 20x plus 5 plus 24x minus 1 equals 180. So this really just becomes a Unit 1 problem. So if you're great at Unit 1, good. You're going to have success right now. If you weren't great at Unit 1, well, this is the time you can refine your skills and get better. All right. From here, it's just going to be good old CLT, combine like terms. So I'm going to get 44x and 5 minus 1. It's on the same side. So plus 4 equals 180. And then I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. How do I undo a plus 4? You subtract it. So 44x equals 176. Now 44 times x. How do I undo multiplication? Division. And that's going to give me a very famous number, x equals 4. All right. So it said find the value of x. We did. I could plug it back in, and both of the angle measures would add up to 180 degrees. But you can do that for fun if you want. I'm going to do this problem for fun. Okay. So again, what I really like about geometry class is that there's logic and reason. That's what the reasoning was called. That's what the last unit was called. You have to think about things, critical thinking skills, and then once you use some logic and reason, you kind of get to determine the path you take. All right, so we need to solve for x and y. In this particular problem, there's a specific letter we have to solve for first, and that letter is x. Okay, so let's look. I have that angle. I have that angle. Well, notice how they're on the inside and alternating sides. They're on alternate sides of the transversal and on the interior of the parallel lines. So for x, I have alternate interior angles. Actually, let me write that out. And I try not to abbreviate too much, because then you forget what alternate interior angles means, or AIA. Alternate interior angles. And what's the punchline? Again, we can just kind of even tell by looking at it, but they're congruent. So again, if I told you in Unit 1 that we had some congruent angles, you'd say, okay, boss, all I got to do is set them equal to each other and solve for x. Okay? So I'm just going to subtract 8x from both sides. I'm going to deal with a negative number, just because I feel like it. I'm going to get negative 10 equals negative x. Divide both sides by negative 1. And then 10 equals x. And I'm going to highlight that. Okay, so I found x. It told me to solve for x and y. I'm only halfway done. Okay, so again, I'm going to say this a lot. Why do I like this class? Well, I can plug in x right here and say it forms a linear pair right there. We have a good old linear pair, which is supplementary. But what I'm going to do instead, just for the spirit of this unit, is I'm going to plug it in here. All right, and what do we have with y and this angle up here? These two angles is consecutive interior angles, and they're supplementary. So what I got to do is I got to take 8x minus 10, add it to 6y plus 20, and that equals 180. Then this x, remember, was 10, so I'm going to do 8 times 10 minus 10 plus 6y plus 20 equals 180. Now this whole left-hand side, a lot of simplification going on. I could do this in one step, but I'm not. If you guys want to do it in one step, remember, my videos are just suggestions to steer you in the right directions. You don't have to copy down exactly what I do, although it's a good idea to mostly copy exactly what I write down because I'm purposely writing it down. But nonetheless, a bunch of math happens, and we eventually get y equals 15. Smiley face. Okay, that's it for this video. Stay tuned for more.